All right, let's get on to Mr. Pollock. Alan Pollock is here with a tech update. I try to think, Alan, who I was talking to this past week, and then going, I know it was Mark, and then several others commented, this tech update is really interesting. He comes forward with just great information, new things that we can't possibly try and stay on top of everything. What do you have for us today, Mr. Pollock? Oh, I realized, doggone, I'm sorry, that's my bad, Alan. I'm looking at the switchboard, and I tapped your microphone, and there we are. Now we got you on. I tapped it earlier, and I don't know why I didn't turn on. I apologize.
Okay.
Good to have you.
I got to say, David, I've been listening during this podcast so far today, and such great content. It's nice to hear David Kittle's voice back on the program. And
yes.
And
when he finally shows up every once in a while.
This market, holy cow. So I got a good joke, David, and you always laugh at my jokes, whether they're good or bad, so that's why I'm not afraid to say it.
I'm a polite host.
Especially with the $1 billion lottery winner that we had in California. You ready?
Yes.
A man asks his wife, "What would you do if I won the lottery?" She said, "I'd take half and leave you." He said, "Great. I just won $12. Here's $6. Please stay in touch."
That's funny. That's actually a pretty good one. People could appreciate that for many reasons.
All right.
All right.
I don't think you get. And it's tax free, right? I think if it's under $250, you don't pay taxes. Easy settlement.
All right.
All right. Before I get into that, I've got a lot of stuff, so I'm gonna cut some of it. But get this: we're finding more and more people are working less, even though they're more productive working from home. I get a daily email from a group called The Hustle, which is such great information every day. There's all kinds of content. This one was a Google search. It was on the job from 9 to 5, or is it really 4? And they looked over the years at what people are Googling on how to get out of work sooner. And there's 2 that made it to the top. The first one is this phrase, "Would you look at the time?" And the second one is the phrase, "Let's call it a day." So those are the top 2 broadly searched terms or results that people are finding when looking how to get out of work early. And yes, David, we've got a lot of people living the van life. They're living off the grid or half on the grid. Amazon is now investing $120 million in a Florida facility that will prepare satellites for what they call Project Cooper, if I'm pronouncing it right. It's space
Project
broadband.
Cooper.
And, yeah. It's space broadband, and it's a rival to, obviously, Elon Musk's Starlink. And it will be about 3,500 satellites, and it'll be ready soon. Check it out. If you live off the grid or you live in the van life and you're interested, as you're looking for your next home, because you've been saving up for that big giant down payment. And automated payments. I mentioned this one, David. It's connected to the mortgage industry. Everything is going digital, right? We know that. And there's been a lot of people saying, I don't want currency to go digital. But guess what, guys? It already is digital. If you don't think that everything you spend your money on, except for very little bit of cash transactions, is not being aggregated and reported on or categorized, you're definitely wrong. Get this. Amazon is also launching what's called Pay by Palm at all of their Whole Foods stores.
Pay by what did you say?
P-A-L-M, Palm.
Palm.
So it's called Pay by Palm, and it is going to be within all of its Whole Foods stores this year. And it obviously will have your prints on file, and you'll be able to just put your hand on the screen and pay and walk.
So you high-five the register and walk out, okay?
That's exactly right. They should have called it the high-five payment.
The high-five. Right. So funny. Okay, so that's I totally get that in the iris.
It's coming.
Your iris.
FTC settlement on the ICE and Black Knight deal. So there's an article on Housing Wire. You can Google it. Go check it out. And it is called "The Odds Now Favor an FTC Settlement on the ICE Black Knight Deal," and the content below says they look poised to finally settle. Obviously, selling off Optimal Blue was a very big thing to put another vendor in the market and also to reduce the risk of having that entity that they don't want to have. Check it out. For those of you that don't know, by the way, on your iPad or Apple device, there's a section called News. And if you go in there, you can add, I have a whole bunch of news organizations that I look at, like Digital Trends and some other real techie ones, but Housing Wire is in there. And you can read articles. like six or eight squares, 4 or 5 rows at a time, and you can get through a day or entire week of Housing Wire stories instantly. Very cool. So just check that out.
Very cool. That's another great tip. I love what Clayton's doing. Clayton Collins is a good friend, and he just interviewed me on his podcast, and that podcast is getting crazy number of downloads as well. So it was really fun to be there. But I love the innovativeness that he's doing. We're going to have him on the podcast as a special guest. We're in the process of getting that all scheduled up. And so I love what he's doing, especially when he bought Real Trends. That was another one of those smart move. Clayton, way to go. So you can get the Housing Wire news on the news on your iPhone and iPad. Excellent. I'll do that. So
it's very cool. And it'll notify you you can set it to set new stories or keywords. You can have it notify you, which is pretty cool. All right. Let's talk Fannie Mae and let's talk lender surveys, right? This is every once in a while, every quarter or so this comes out. Fannie Mae did another survey, and they looked at what were the top business priorities for lenders. They do categorize the lenders out by depository, non-depository, and on the depository side, they look at the difference between banks and credit unions and such.
Right.
Here's the high level, and they compare 2020 quarter 2 to 2021 quarter 2. So every year from 2020, they look at all the quarter 2s. And right now, cost cutting across all lending organizations is the highest. 35% of folks say that they're focused on cost cutting. 32%, David, say that business process streamlining is most important. And you know what the final one is?
Finally.
Here we go.
What is
24%. Talent, management, and leadership.
Good.
That's the first time that I've really seen that in the news. Everyone's been focused on digital transformation and lowering costs.
Right.
But it comes down to the orchestration and the leadership, right? So that was very interesting. Now, let's talk about one other quick thing about this survey. It says, and this is verbatim from Fannie Mae, in other words, mortgage bank priorities reflect higher cost and revenue pressures, okay? Whereas depository institutions' priorities, they reflect challenges of meeting regulatory changes and recruiting talent to drive sales. That was really interesting. So if you're a vendor listening to this podcast, you got to be a partner. You have to be a tech partner, not a tech provider. And David, that takes us down to what I said last week we would continue talking about this week, which was a survey about considerations for your software partnerships and how costly they truly are. And one of the things I mentioned last week was keeping your eyes down the road. And more specifically, it was about seeking out partnerships and third-party vendors is a big factor in the price. And most buyers will price compare or price shop different vendors, but they neglect to look and consider the hidden financial cost. As an example, or other LOS systems actually will cost a lot of money if you need to hire a third-party consultant to configure your system. So do you have the right staff? Can you make the right investment in that vendor? And you need to compare different vendors in that different way. Time and resources truly add up. This is category number 2. And this is the one we didn't really get into last week. I only mentioned it. And what it basically says is that partnering with new technology vendors requires a significant amount of time and resources to administer each relationship, including the vetting process, the due diligence process and reports, paying invoices, and even managing support staff and implementation timelines. This is all before you've even gotten the tech that you paid for. As you're thinking about what Fannie Mae said about talent management and leadership, before you make certain hires and fires, do you have the right folks to make sure that you can manage your vendors? And how many vendors are you managing? Now, I'm going to pause it right there, David. Next week, we're going to talk about the all-in-one vendors, which there's a lot of, and having the right partnership. But just think about what we talked about today. Looking down the road at the true cost of having a vendor, and do you have the time and resources aligned with the right staff to even manage them before you even get to use the tech?
Boy, some thought-provoking information here, Alan, things you need to be considering. And if people want to talk to you about this as they're looking at their tech stack, I'm really encouraged by what Byte's approach to this, to the way they approach it, one-year contracts, the way they're going about it. They seem to be the lower-cost provider in there, but there's many factors that go into this, and there's no but in that. There are many factors. And so I think it's getting the guidance from someone like you just to have a conversation. I know you're so generous with your time that you do have these conversations just on a pro bono. Yes, if you want to retain you, that's a different deal. But
I'm
you have so
happy
much to share.
Questions. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I actually have a lender right now that we're entering the contract phase, and I'm going to help them with exactly that. I will say, and I'll leave it with this, we have so many super, super talented vendors and amazing features, and they're all great platforms that it is a hard decision. And you just have to make sure you're not making decisions based on you went to a great party at a conference or you like the CEO of that company. It's truly does it fit in within your organization and your talent pool. So I'll leave it at that for this week, David. But you know how to get hold of David or I. That's right. Alan at TMS Advisors or David at TMS Advisors.
Yep. Alan is ALLEN. So very good.